Welcome to a special mailbag episode of the It's a Mimic podcast, where I, Adam, am sitting down with one of our Patreon members, Andri, who has generously become our first patron of Metallic Great Worm tier, and he's back for the third time now. And that means he's going to be able to sit down and record an episode with us, and he decided that today we're going to be designing a small town. This is the third time Andri and I have sat down for one of these episodes. We've built a dungeon and workshopped some dragon stat blocks, which means, he's leaning hard into the Dungeons and Dragons of Dungeons and Dragons. But before we get started, let's check in again, because as far as I can tell, I'm actually talking to Andri's evil twin, because he's got a brand new background and he has shaved his head. So, your glorious locks have all just disappeared.
Yeah, yeah. I that was a very thank you. I'm glad to be back, first of all. But yeah, I have officially moved into my new apartment. Not long after we talked, I started looking at the market, and then I think only like a month ago, we looked at this place and offered to it immediately, me and my girlfriend. So it was a whole month of stressing.
That is very stressful, but also very exciting. This is your first place.
Oh yeah, this is our first place on our own. And then yeah, the shaving my head was a two-parter. I both wanted to shave as to because it's a new part of my life. I wanted to start again, and my hair was getting quite rough, and it was quite frankly in cosmetic terms fucked. Um, the luscious locks were only a sham because of the amount of work I put into them.
That's fair.
I decided to start fresh.
This
is not my first time doing this, so
yeah, I feel that every time that I do something new or it's time for change or whatnot, the beard goes way back in. So you can tell that I am now getting to wizard level. It is time for it to fucking get knocked back here. Although it keeps threatening me, that I'm gonna keep it as long as possible. I'm just gonna grow it and grow it and grow it until the wedding, and then she can see what we're gonna do from there. So which means I have 11 more. Oh my God, I have 11 more months. Oh, fuck. So the other thing that we should say for a disclaimer before we go any further is that Andri and I are both hungover as fuck. Andri had his first hangover ever today. And I got shit-faced with Dan last weekend. I got shit-faced with Megan 2 nights ago, and I got shit-faced with Dave last night. And in wonderful. 3 days, I'm getting shit-faced with Casey and Charlie. So it is just the Christmas season of drinking. And that, I think, checks off everyone on my D&D, around my D&D table except Mieka.
That's wonderful.
So no, yeah. I am rough today.
I was very happy, though. My hangover wasn't that bad. I woke up, stood up, I was like, whoa, this is probably a hangover. And then I took a shower, and was like, oh, it's gone. What a light fucker. But I was then informed the first hangover is the easiest one, so I'm excited for the future.
It will take me 2 days to get back on my feet. So yeah, I will be good again Tuesday morning. Just in time to get shit-faced with Charlie and Casey.
Just about to say. You gotta start fresh when you get shit-faced.
All right, so building a town. You and I talked about, what do we want to talk about this episode? And you landed on building a town. Specifically, you said something that's relatively small, but it's got a duke. So when we say small town, we don't mean really small town. We mean functioning small city, right?
Yeah.
So why did you pick this? What was the thing that interested you the most about this before we jump in?
Honestly, the lack of towns that I've had in my campaigns. Honestly, I have done very out and about nature type, way more open world than it probably has to work. It's been a lot of relying on my outdoor personality and scouting.
Okay.
To figure it out. But urban areas are not my favorite terrain, if you will.
It's honestly one of the most intimidating things for a lot of new players and new DMs. And if you've never done it before, you have very limited experience, it can be overwhelming because you've got a couple of things that immediately stand in your way. And one of those is the fact that there's no sneaking. There are eyes everywhere all of the time. The second one is you have to hold your players accountable for their murder hoboism. They can go slay a goblin out in the woods, no problem. They can't slay a goblin in an alley. That's now a crime scene, right? And so a roadside tavern out in the middle of nowhere, you can get in a bar fight. But if you get in a bar fight in the capital city, you're going to jail, right?
If you get caught.
You if it's in the capital city, you're going to get caught. Like that's the whole shit. Unless you can teleport away or you've got some invisibility, like you got to get up to some magical kerfuckery to get away from that kind of stuff. So which brings me to kind of my first point before we launch into the breakdown that we're working off of. When you build a town, honestly, you should focus on the absolute necessary things. Have a handful of random tables of NPCs nearby so that you can fill in the gaps, because the difference between a blacksmith and a wig maker and a candle maker are all like, it's just what items they're going to write down on the character sheet, right? The difference is going to be the NPCs they run into. And that's going to be a conversation for, I think, another episode, is digging into the NPC personalities and motivations and whatnot when they're in a town, as opposed to the roadside bandits or, you know, the bartender out in the middle of the stick somewhere who carries a shotgun under the counter, right? Like there's going to be differences between the poor section of town and the merchants and the nobles, and there's a right way to do stuff when you're in a city. So the best thing to do is to start small and only go to the places you need to go. You can describe things kind of broadly, but if you've never done it before, going sandbox can be a little scary. This is why we like to zoom out and do downtime and say, are you shopping? What are you shopping for? Okay, it'll cost you this much. And we just kind of hand wave the interactions themselves, unless we've got some experience. I have very limited experience with Critical Role, but I know that Matt Mercer is absolutely great at bringing in interesting markets and merchants and NPCs, and
it's honestly unbelievable how he does it.
But you gotta remember, it's his full-time job, right? Like he spent an hour and a half designing each one of them, right?
That's true. Well, he's still a voice actor. I'd say it's definitely a 60% job at least.
Oh no, I believe that man is overworked. I think that he works 2 full-time jobs. So.
Oh yeah, honestly, I could see that as well.
But when it comes to building towns, a lot of it is just based on NPC generation. But what a lot of people don't think about is the town itself and building something interesting. And if we're going to homebrew from the ground up, instead of just slotting in a unique vendor in Waterdeep or Baldur's Gate, if we're going to build it from the ground up, there's actually a lot of considerations that you can throw into it. And we're going to kind of dive off the deep end in this episode. But I want to say, you don't have to put any single piece of what we talk about into a town. Right, you can decide to skip any single 1 or 2 or dozen of these steps. I'm just trying to cover all the bases so that we can build a fairly fleshed out town, and then we can slap NPCs on top of it from there, right?
Yeah.
So what we need before we get started, though, are dice, because there will be random tables later. So
I got dice. I got dice.
You got dice. That's a that's a cool little dice box. Did you find that in the local store or Amazon? Or?
Neither of these are local store. They're from a website that me and my girlfriend absolutely love. Well, I originally bought these dice for me. My girlfriend liked the amethyst one a lot, so I gave it to her. Reluctantly, I would like to add. I did give it to her, even though I didn't want to. But
Mieka commandeered some of my dice, and I ended up going out and buying the exact same set to give her to get mine back.
I could have done that, but I was like, I haven't given her a gift in a while. Sure, why not?
Let's jump into kind of the decisions that we're going to make ahead of time. You make the choices. I'll ask the question. You make the choice. I'll write it down, and then we'll see what we end up with at the end. Okay?
I love that. I love that.
So let's start off with, before we do anything else, this setting that we're in: high magic or low magic?
High magic.
High magic.
Easy. Magic is so much fun.
Now, when you say high magic, do you mean sky's the limit magic? Like there are people walking around that can move mountains with their minds? Or do you mean that there's just broad magic? Everybody has access to lanterns that are magically lit?
Yeah, that's the second one. I'm not I think there should be a lot of magic. Magic should be a well-known thing, but like moving mountains with your mind should still be, some otherworldly stuff that nobody sees every day.
Yeah, I tend to think that even high magic caps out around fifth level spells.
Yeah, I can agree. I think I've run it that way mostly. There's like the odd NPC or so that has higher than fifth, but that's because they're an archmage. Yeah, there you go. I got it.
Yeah, exactly. So when we have high magic, it's not uncommon to see people call lightning down or to
Yeah,
skywrite or to fly, but disintegrate and make wishes and shit
yeah,
is
yeah.
still
Yeah,
beyond the average.
yeah. Don't exactly
So
see a lot of thugs casting disintegrate.
hold on, let me write that down. I'm going to use that. Um, so what kind of geography are we talking about here? We're talking coastal,
Hmm.
mountain, forest, desert.
Oh, I'm thinking. Is it okay if I pick two?
Yeah, absolutely. Mash them together, make it interesting.
Yeah, a coastal mountain is really reminiscent of was really stuck out. Jesus Christ! I shouldn't have drank that one beer. I'm already slurring.
Yeah, the hair of the dog that bites you
Yeah.
is a myth. You're still fucked up later in the day. So, coastal mountain, that's great. You know what? I am very familiar with that kind of region. So,
Yeah, so am I.
yeah. What
Living on
is
a
one?
mountainous island.
Yeah, well, yeah, yours is a little bit more vicious than mine too. Mine doesn't
Yeah.
explode on a semi-frequent basis.
Hey, we're waiting for another one, man. We're we're waiting for it. This one is going to
Um,
be rough as well.
Speaking of explosions, what's one magical feature of the landscape that made people want to live here?
Ooh, I'm thinking fertile land. Like even though the terrain isn't great, the magic around it make the land fertile.
Like everything, all the food just grows bigger. All the plants
Yeah,
are
or more of it, bigger, or it's just fertile because that is the opposite of how my island is.
yeah,
Nothing grows here except like potatoes.
that's fair. Um, what kind of intelligent species live around the area?
We're talking like
Like playable races and other ones that
playable
are,
race. Okay.
not playable, but could be, you know.
I think Goliaths in the mountains, maybe,
Hmm. Give me four.
before. Okay. I got you for that. Goliaths,
Yeah,
one. I'm thinking orcs as well, just to have that lingering threat.
sure. No. Let's focus on the good guys first. We'll
Oh,
we'll
the good.
jump we'll
Okay,
jump
okay,
into the
okay, okay,
bad
okay,
guys
okay,
here in a minute.
okay.
Like, because
Then
we're,
we'll
we're what I'm trying to
retract
figure out
orcs.
is who's living in the town.
Okay. Oh, okay. So Goliaths, humans.
Sure.
We'll go half elves.
Does
That's
that
one
mean that
more.
there's nearby elves as well? Like we could do
Yes.
sea elves because we're on the coast.
Oh yeah. Do you know what? We'll go sea elves. Why not? That's nice.
I often look at the terrain and the geography to tell me what
Yeah.
kind of people are going to be around, and then I lean into those tropes a little bit. Um,
Yeah, that's smart.
Now that we have four, I want to point out that Goliaths are large, yeah, but are bigger than the average,
Yeah.
but they're all medium-sized creatures. Did you want to
Yes.
add small-sized creatures? Like, do
We
you
we
want to just
definitely
pick one?
can pick one. Okay. How about ooh. I mean there aren't a lot. What there's gnomes and halflings.
Oh, there's more than that. There's Harengon, there's fairies,
Oh
there's
yeah. I
there's goblins, there's
uh,
Kender, we got a lot now.
yeah. I don't really play small races, so they kind of just fly by my head a lot. So
Yeah, fair enough.
let's go goblins. Yeah, let's go goblins just to make it a little interesting.
All right, sounds good. And we're just going to assume based on the order of the choices that you made them in is those are going to be like the percentages. Like there's more Goliaths and humans and fewer half elves and even fewer sea elves and a smattering of goblins.
Yes.
Okay, cool. What kind of town is it? Are we unaffiliated? Is it part of a kingdom or a country? Like you want
Ooh,
this to just be
I think
free?
we're def I think we're definitely doing a part of a kingdom or country. Yeah.
Okay. Kingdom or country?
We'll go with kingdom.
How close is it to the border?
I want this to be a border town. Like this is on the edge of a border.
Is it a high traffic area for merchants? Like if we're at a coastal mountain, are there big ports that people come through? Or is this really out in the sticks somewhere? Like this is the biggest town around.
I'd say that there's a medium amount of merchants. There isn't like it isn't anything grand like a capital city, but it isn't out in the sticks.
So we're dealing with like independent trading ships and not necessarily massive.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Let's see. Does the city have a castle?
I think I think so. Yeah, one grand, one well maybe not grand, but a castle.
Something that like not necessarily looms over the city, but is a definite feature of.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next thing that I want to talk about is defending the city. And so one of the things that we talk about right off the bat is geographical features. And that's really, really good because we have the coast on one side
Mhm.
and the mountains on the other. That
Yep.
means that we've got natural borders that are going to keep the average army from invading, but it does mean that there are marauders and looters that are going to come up and down the coast, that are going to come
Yep.
in and out of the mountain range, right? So
Yeah.
when you think about defending the city, at this point, if we're this far away, it should have walls. All cities have walls,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
But what's the geographical feature? Like, have they built up against a sheer cliff face? Are they up against, like, are they in an easily defensible lagoon? Like, what's the name one geographical feature you think would help them say, okay, this is the perfect place to
I think
defend?
I think a sheer cliff.
You want to build the
Yeah.
castle on top of the cliff or beside the cliff or into the cliff or
Oh, into the cliff. Oh, you said into it. Now I have to go into it, right?
fair enough. We've got almost a Helm's Deep.
Yeah, I realized when I was thinking, I was like, oh, this is sounding more and more like almost Minas Tirith. Like, oh, great.
Yeah, that's even better. When we think about defenses, do you want to add a magical feature? If we're talking about high magic, is there specifically something that we would add to it? And I just want to say, you should not do force fields, right? That's too much. So,
No, I hate force fields anyway. So,
but having something
they're too easy.
like cannons that shoot fireball, or like you need to speak a magic word to get across the bridge that leads here, or something, right?
Well, you said fireball, and I think everybody who's a player that listens to this, or is a player becoming a DM, they're just gonna go with fireball, right? Like I immediately thought, well, it's a cannon that shoots fireball, man.
All right.
I mean, who wouldn't want a big ass cannon shooting fireballs? That's all I'm saying.
I don't think we're going to end up necessarily with a moat if we're getting a little bit further back into the mountains. Like the coast is nearby, but probably not a moat. I would assume that there's going to be bridges all over the place, like little rivers and streams. And
Yeah, 100%.
and whatnot. So lots of bridges.
Well,
So
we're making Venice now. That's fun.
mountain is Venice.
Yeah.
So
can't go wrong.
So just to paint the picture here, what we have is a city that has a little bit of money in it, right? There's a castle and there's someone that rules over them, a duke or a count or something that is built into the side of a cliff, but is on the water because we're going to have ports as well, right? So the city can be large, but it's almost like it needs to be long as it's between two natural barriers.
Yeah.
But we also decided it's about the fertile land. So there's lots of lush greenery and flora around, which means that there's going to be farmland that's kind of built in. Have you ever seen I'm trying to remember where it is, where they've cut out sections of a hillside.
So I know exactly. It is. I think in cities of Machu Picchu and South America, right?
Yes. Yeah. And so they've made these flat areas so that they can have irrigation, so that they can grow their crops, right?
Absolutely.
So there's huge swaths of mountain that have been taken away. That makes a lot of sense for Goliaths, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who would master the mountains, and humans who are industrious, goblins too, who are inventive, and we have half elves and sea elves, which are about nature and would be able to help with that, right? Sea elves would be
Yeah.
great for working with irrigation.
Yeah. It's all come together.
Yeah, yeah, this is working itself nicely together. So the next question I've got for you is military structure. Are we dealing with town guards, police, sheriff and a deputy, investigators or inspectors, conscripts, mercenaries? Is it organizations? Is it guilds? Is it knights? Like, who is in charge of the actual defense here? What is the military structure that keeps the peace?
I think I think the classic is town guards, isn't it? Like,
Yep.
and then have like a knight overseeing them, like at the very top.
So we'll do like knights that are affiliated with the castle,
Yeah, and
and
then
then
town guards
everyone
are.
else is town guards. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have written here what is the political structure, who is the leader, but we know that it's a duke or a count or a baron or something. But
Yes.
let's make the call right now. We can make it just any one of those things at that level, and we can choose the female version of it or whatever in
Yeah.
a future discussion, right? But for now,
Yes.
kind of what level are we talking?
I think a duke. I think we're speaking duke here.
Are they a duke because they're related to the royal family, or because they're a hero that has been able to work their way up, or have they just inherited lands?
I think that they um hold on, let's I want to how many options did you say?
There's the ones that have that like are just like I'm the cousin of the king, right?
Yeah.
So related to the royal family. Then there's the ones that have been essentially knighted or gifted lands by the royalty because of the grand deeds they've done. So there's heroes. And then there's
Yeah.
just the ones that have inherited it because their grandparents or great grandparents, somewhere in their lineage, earned it, right?
Right. I think we're gonna go for the deeds that they have done. They became a duke. The whether
So
it
we
was
can
heroic or other.
so we can assume then that this hero actually is respected by the knights
Yes.
and is well liked by the people.
Yes.
That brings us to the next thing. And this is where we actually choose kind of the alignment of the town is what's the religious structure? Is
You want me
it,
to pick a god? Like what?
well, first of all, are we going with an entire pantheon? Are we saying all pantheons are welcome? Are we saying no religion in the town? Or are we saying this is a town that worships a single god?
I think we're going all pantheons are welcome. We're gonna because this is a border town with so many affiliated races close to it. Like trying to have history has shown us trying to force religion down someone's throat has not gone well in
No,
any case.
not so much. We're
Yeah.
history and current times are teaching us
Yes.
that.
Yeah. Let's
So
not get political here.
but with all pantheons welcome, then is this town like neutral good or neutral?
I'd say neutral good. I think there's more good than not.
And I just want to say the difference between neutral good and lawful good. All civilizations are lawful. Lawful tends to have stricter consequences.
I think I don't think there should be. I think there need to be consequences, but I don't think they need to be.
It's not martial law.
It's not martial. Exactly. It's not. It's very. You know, you pay a fine or go to the get tomatoes thrown at you at the break or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
Break. That's not the word. What's the word?
Stocks. You're looking for the stocks.
There you go. Stocks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Not my first language.
All right. So now we know who the good guys are. Let's talk about the bad guys for a second. And this is going to be really dependent on the campaign, but we're just coming up with a general like geography here. The questions I have are what is the biggest threat that's nearby? That's the very first one. So we're at a border.
Yeah.
Who are the neighboring political entities? Or are there none because we're on the coast and it's just anything in open water goes?
I think there could be a bit of both because I like having political conflict in my world because it just fuels a campaign.
I mentioned orcs before. Is there like a large orc war band in the mountains?
Yes. I think there should definitely be an orc war band in the mountains that have probably plagued the Goliaths for generations, and then humans and elves came along, and this town has been established.
Okay. Like maybe originally this was a multicultural fort that was
Yeah.
a foothold to push back, and then it turned into a castle, and then a town,
Yeah.
a city popped up around it. Okay. But is there another country? Was there anyone else? Or are we
I
talking
think
pirates?
I think we should definitely think. I at least want there to be an elven, like an elven kingdom like this. These what more words? Fucking words.
Like an elven, we're talking like a tribe or a clan or something?
We're no like a kingdom, like a full blown or an empire, if you will. These the purists. That's the closest word I'm thinking of. Another word, but the only word I can think of is purists.
Okay, so they're like fanatics, so like zealots, right?
Yeah, there you go. Oh my god, not my first language again.
That's all right. So elves, are we going? First of all, what we didn't talk about this. Are we on the west, east, north, or south coast?
So we are on the south coast, on the eastern side of the Elven Kingdom Empire, whichever. We'll go Empire. We'll go Empire actually. Empires tend to sound more evil.
Evil, Elven, Empire, the triple E's. And you said to the east, so that's quadruple E's. So we've got the coast to the south. We've got the mountains with orcs to the north. We've got the elves to the east.
Yeah.
Which means that our kingdom needs to be to the west.
Yes.
Are there any, like, do we just have bandits or pirates or anything else? Like it is out in the middle of nowhere. Do we worry about that? Or
no, I don't think there's much worry about that. I think this place in itself has enough because it is at a border town. It has the military presence is higher than in any other town. So I don't think pirates or bandits would raid. At least they would have to organize it a lot before. I think the main problem would be the orcs and the elves.
Okay, so let's talk about geographical or seasonal issues. Where are we like clearly we're not dealing with droughts, right? Are we dealing with the rainy season or the windy season or the cold season, or what's the thing that we should, does it get so warm, but it's not a drought, but it's like the bugs are out, like in Chult, like we're talking jungles of mosquitoes. And like which one do you want the players, when they're doing the exploration pillar, to become very familiar with? Because we are going to know the coast, but when they're on land, what are they going to have to plan for?
I think wind. I can resonate a lot with the wind.
So I like that because I feel like even the farms and stuff have tall fences that aren't just like single posts, but like solid fences to keep the wind off of just whipping away the leaves and the crops and stuff.
I definitely think so. Yeah.
Do we have an arch villain? And are they associated with these two other political entities, or do we just have like a lich or a dragon, or like what's the other thing we should think about here?
I definitely because this is like this Elven Empire is definitely something that I have made before and I've thought about. The only real idea I had with it was that there was a green dragon manipulating the leader of said country. And here we are.
Do we know that it's a green dragon, or is it like polymorph?
The players won't know.
Okay.
Like no, only the DM would know. But from the outside, this just looks like a tyrannical, evil emperor.
Okay. And then, is there any common creature type that we should be focused on, like fae, plants, classic monstrosities, oozes, undead? Like, are we going to lean heavily into that when they go out into the wilderness? What are we likely to run into, like above in an above average amount of encounters?
In an above, I think fae and plants we should be, because of the innate magic of the area being so fertile. Obviously, something but must, and then fae because they're funny. Nature, honestly, they're also just fun.
All right, so we've got the good guys, we've got the bad guys. let's talk about the history a little bit. We don't have to flesh this out because this is mostly campaign prep. So it's just make quick decisions and
Okay.
then see if you like the whole picture when it's done. And then you can go back and tweak what you like afterwards.
I like that. I like that.
So, how old is this city? Keeping in mind we've got
Uh,
elves. So, how old is this city?
let's say 400 years.
So, there will still be elves in the Elven Empire that remember the founding of this city.
Yes.
Okay. Is the founding of the city noteworthy in any way? Was there a battle? Was there a god that touched down here? Was there a portal that opened up and so defenses had to come in? Or what did someone just say, hey, you know what? I'm a rich guy. Here's a bunch of money. I'm moving in.
I think it could be both. I was thinking more when after a battle, when anything had been cleared, somebody noticed the richness of the land, the otherworldly richness, the magical essence of the land, and said this would be great farmland.
Okay, so that battle would be with the orcs or the elves?
I think in this case, the orcs.
What's the biggest myth or superstition about the city for outsiders, right?
Oh, for outsiders. Okay. Ooh.
Just like what's the reputation? I know I live in a suburb outside of Vancouver, and there's like
Right.
15 or 16 different suburbs here that stretch out. Vancouver is up against water, up against mountains, and up against the United States border. So we can only go east, but again, only so far. And we really can't go north because it's way too mountainous. So A, we've got a lot of towers because the population keeps booming, but B, we've got a lot of neighborhoods and each one has their own reputation, right? Oh, you don't walk through this area at night after dark, or if you want the best price on fish, this is where you go, right? Like it's that kind of stuff. What's the biggest myth or superstition or reputation about this city, like within the kingdom?
I think that from an outside perspective, that the myth could be that the Lord that owns this now bought his way to it. He didn't actually do anything.
Okay, is that true, or is that just a rumor?
It's just a rumor. I want there to be some good guys in this.
All right. Are there any like supernatural myths or superstitions or anything about the area? We've got fae, we've got orcs who are very superstitious, we've got elves and
I think there are definitely some superstitions here that like if a Goliath feels if this one Goliath feels an ache in his knee, the wind is going to get extra. Like the classic superstitions, but also if I don't know if the waves move in a certain way, the sea elves get defensive. Like, but maybe it's a real thing, maybe it's not. It's just an old superstition. What happens? I don't know.
But
like very
but when we talk about the city, do people say, oh, that's where demons come through, or you can't go there without wearing these, you can't travel there without wearing this kind of necklace, otherwise the orcs will attack you, right? Like, is there anything like that kind of
okay, I hear you. I definitely okay, I get you now. I think it definitely that if you walk into a certain part of if a forest somewhere around, that there's a fae portal there that opens and closes whenever it decides to, I suppose, and that's where the fae are pouring through.
So there's an unreliable fae portal somewhere nearby. Okay, cool. How rich is the city?
I'd say it's moderate because of the amount of farming it gets done. Like, this is not it's not like the king rich, but this is the Lord can live comfortably, and so can the people. Like, there's not a lot of poverty in the city.
I mean, if you've got merchants coming through and ships and whatnot, there will be some, but it's not enough.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
How long ago was the last war?
The last war, I'd say, let's go with 300 years ago, 100 years after the establishment of the city when it was just a fort. So from there, it has grown, I'd say.
Who was the last famous person to be associated with the city? Is it our Duke because he's a hero? Like, do we have an actual celebrity?
Yeah, the current Duke is the current superstar, if you will, of the city.
So just to be clear, if we had made other decisions, if we had gone with he's got the Duke that lives there is the king's cousin or whatnot, we
Yeah.
could choose another celebrity. Like there's a famous
Yes.
bard that came in here and wrote all of his epic poems sitting
Yes.
in this one tavern, right? And so people come here to get inspired. There's lots of bards. Like there's all sorts of different kinds of celebrity that we could add to it. But I like that it's built into our Duke here. That keeps it streamlined for us.
Yep.
I already asked about the reputation of the city for those who live elsewhere, but what's the reputation of the city for those who live in it?
I think they look. We touched on it earlier. They look favorably to it. Like even though there is the constant threat of the orcs and potentially the Elven Empire, but they feel safe with their, well, relatively as safe as they could feel with behind the walls.
They seem to be a content population that is
Yes.
happy with their day-to-day lives, and yes, there are nearby threats, but if you take the appropriate precautions and if you follow the rules, you ought to be fine.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really forgetting words now. I haven't spoken English in a while.
Welcome to the hangover.
Yeah.
What is a piece of important knowledge that all the locals know, but newcomers might not? This could be anything from the manor up on the hill is haunted and we don't go in there, straight through to like, hey, the best time to get prices at the docks for fish is going to be first thing in the morning, right?
Yeah. Ooh. So all the locals know. So local knowledge.
Pick one thing because that's going to be the main feature. But honestly,
Yeah.
I would sit down and come up with a D6 table and sit down and go for a drive or whatever and kind of think about what the different rumors would be around this, so that as my players learn things, they can get false information, solid information, kind of vague information, right, about a series of different things that they could go do as little side quests. So
Ooh. I probably should have looked over this entire thing more.
no, this one's funky, and if we don't come up with anything for it right now, that's fine. We might end up with inspirations in the future when we go through NPCs, because NPCs drive a lot of these local knowledges and rumors. The rumor or the regular sensibility when it comes to a small town is everybody knows everyone's business, right?
Yeah.
When you're dealing with the medieval fantasy town, like this, the population on this is not small. Like we've got a few thousand people living here.
Yeah, definitely.
But you do know the districts. You've been on every street in your life.
Yeah.
Like you know who the main players are. So
Yeah, no, I don't think I can think of anything because there isn't much of it.
yeah, we can circle back to this.
Yeah.
When we figure out kind of once we build this, assuming that it's a town that the players go to, it's not a starting town. Once they come here, if they land for any appreciable amount of time, which is honestly why we're building it like this. If they were just blowing through, I would skip the majority. I would make these decisions very quickly and then not really worry about too much of the, like, well, there's a secret green dragon in the Elven Empire, unless they're going there, right? Like,
Yeah.
So, so we can actually skip that one, but it is good to think about what do the locals know and what do the visitors know, because if there are regular merchants and traders coming in off of the ocean, they will have their own knowledge about how to get here, what the seasons are, what waters you avoid. Watch out on full moons for a ship that flies red sails, shit like that, right? So that's going to bring us though to our important features, and I gave you a series of tables. There are 16 random tables that we're going to roll on.
Yeah, I got so excited when I saw them.
I'm actually going to post this in the Patreon when this episode released so that all of our patrons can have access to this. I just want to say this is not necessarily the first and foremost go-to list of how to build a town. These are things that I have in my experience run into as being these are things that my players have for some reason or another interacted with in the past.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm not looking to flesh out all of these items, although all of these items might exist in a small city. What I am talking about is what are the things that our players are going to interact with that I'm going to bother to flesh out NPCs for, or I'm going to put a little bit of thought into. These are the main features. When they say, well, what can I do for downtime? You know who's going to be in the pub, or what shops are going to be nearby, or what different plot hooks there might be, or features of the city. So as we go through these, we're just going to say, hey, these things are noteworthy, right? And so, for example, one of the things is our first table is Fortifications 1, because we have 2 tables, 2 D12 tables. Fortifications 1, the first thing is the walls. The town has walls.
Yes.
But the walls would be noteworthy because there was a dwarven stone carver that came through 45 years ago and then put faces of devils on the outside to scare away orcs or something, right? Like that makes it noteworthy. So this is what we're talking about, okay?
Okay. I got you.
So we've got a bunch of D12 tables, a bunch of D10 tables, and a bunch of D8 tables. I think there's 3 D12 and 4 D8, and everything else is D10. So
yeah. I've gotten my dice out, so I'm ready.
Yep. I will take note of it as we go. Go ahead and roll. Give me a D12 roll.
That will be a 12.
So the dungeon and jails are going to be noteworthy in some way, which is phenomenal. That could be because dungeons don't have to be underground; they could be up in a tower, right? Like that's something we can think about, or they can be hanging over the edge of a cliff, and people are like in cells that are like cages that are swinging, right? That's where the murderers go, right? As they get beaten by the elements. So what's another? We're going to roll twice on each one of these first ones. So give me another one on for the first Fortifications 1, another D12.
That'll be a 3. It'll be moats.
Moats. We said there wouldn't be many moats. However, now we have rolled moats. And what that means is that the waterways have got to be defended somehow in interesting ways. And maybe that just can be something like we decide to put crocodiles in them, right? No, we don't have to do that. But if we put crocodiles in them, then maybe each one of these little waterways where people are walking on little footpaths or whatnot, they'll have walls around them as well. So there's these areas, and people feed the crocodiles and alligators because it keeps all of the coastal enemies at bay, right? And maybe now we've got an alligator themed, like the flag is an alligator for this city, right?
Yeah.
So it could be anything like that, or it could be quippers, or maybe the waterways here run orange and no one knows why.
Yeah. My immediate thought went into that they have dammed it a little bit. So the biggest river looks huge, but there isn't as much water in it. So if need be to defend it, they would release the river and it would take out all the bridges if need be.
Oh, that's really cool. I like that. Like the auto destruct button to stop the invading army. I like that. That's fun. Let's move on to fortifications number 2. So the first one was like objects, walls, gates, portcullis, a siege weapon, shit like that. But this one's all about the people that are part of the fortification. So what'd you roll?
Alrighty. I rolled that 9. So police station.
Police station. We decided that we're dealing with knights and town guards. So this might be the Knights Guild Hall or the town guards like favorite watering hole or investigation. Like we're dealing specifically with them. Probably not their watering hole, not their tavern, but like their offices, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's roll again.
Alrighty. That'll be an 8. Port defenses. Ooh.
And port defenses, which make a lot of sense as well, right? Like you said, we're not really dealing with pirates or anything, and maybe we're not dealing with them anymore. And the port defenses that are there are these old ballistas or these giant
exactly
towers that are now in disrepair.
Yeah, some trebuchets or not catapults. If you have trebuchets, then that's the catapults.
Yeah, but I would say that they're epic, they're huge, they're amazing, but maybe they're not in use anymore.
I think what could also be cool is I just remembered this having a chain in uh, at the where the port opens up, and if it's twisted, the chain kind of rises out of the water. So if any invading armies, they just
Oh,
go
that's
into
really
a
cool.
giant steel chain. I remember there was some trivia that my girlfriend told me about England, that the town she's in had a giant chain. So if the Germans would have invaded, they would have just pulled the chain up.
That's so simple and so effective.
That's exactly.
You know what? You know what? So we're gonna put this in a little bit of a bay or a lagoon or something, so that like the
Yeah.
landscape moves out in horns, around
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
ports,
yeah, yeah.
and then we can have two gigantic donkey wheels,
Yes.
right? And but nobody mans them anymore. So if there ever needs to be a thing where like, hey, we need to cut off the bay for whatever reason, we know the Elven Navy is coming in, right?
Yeah.
Then the players just grab every Goliath they can find and start
Yeah.
running to the donkey wheels.
That's good. That's nice. Yeah. I like that.
Now let's talk about the roadside. When you're walking down the roads in here, the very first thing you're going to notice when you walk in are going to be the fortifications, and then you're going to see the defenses and feel the police presence, right? But now when you're walking down the roads, what are you going to run into, right? So there's a D10 table here for the people that you're going to see out and about that aren't necessarily tied to a specific location.
Yeah. I rolled a thug. I rolled a two.
So we have local thugs and
Yeah.
maybe even a little bit of organized crime, right?
Yeah.
Like this is
I
a
definitely think so.
this is a gang that runs, down by the docks or in the poor neighborhood or whatnot, right?
Yeah. I definitely think so. I feel like I'm not gonna say any good town. Any good D&D town has to have some element of crime or someone, so that in if the so the heroes could help
And this is why
the
I put
town.
it on here. This is actually the first table where we've got multiples of the same thing. Like I've got two
Yeah.
thugs, three vendors, and two street performers on here on a
Yeah.
D10 table, right? And the reason I've done that is because you're likely to get lots of them. You could roll
Yeah.
two noteworthy versions of them, but there would be this in every town, right? So,
Yeah.
so our thugs are going to be noteworthy in some way, and maybe it is because that's the goblins, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's definitely something. I
So
forgot that I put goblins in this town immediately.
so let's roll again and see what else we're gonna get on this one.
A four, a vendor.
A vendor. So we can pick whatever we want, but these are not going to be proper merchants and stalls or anything. This is going to be your vendor with a cart selling flowers or selling sweetmeats or selling,
Yeah.
right, trinkets or baubles or even things down by the docks or by the front gates as people come in to be like, hey, welcome to the city. Would you like, hey, if alligators are our emblem, I sell little stone alligators, right? Like,
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
right. It could just be trinkets. The last time I went to Washington, D.C., because Mieka lives about an hour from there, so we go in there occasionally when I'm in town for her. Man, the streets are choked with these vendors. And when I
I've
went to
yeah,
Venice, holy
I've,
shit. Like I couldn't breathe. They were
I
down my
when
throat
I
trying to sell shit.
I've been to both of those places. Yeah, it's a lot. I've been to both. It's a lot. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to public works. So we're talking now about the stuff that is going to stand out to everybody, including a town hall, town square, different gardens, monuments, and more like recreational places
Mhm.
that the Duke is going to just pay for and have upkeep on, right? So
Yeah. I rolled a two and a seven.
so the two is a town square. So I think town square needs to be a big, public, bright, fun area for people to go
Yes,
to, right?
absolutely.
But a seven is a gymnasia, and it's not what you think it is. It's not a gym like
Yeah.
we would see in like a workout area. It's not about
Yeah.
sports. A gymnasia, up until recently, has been a place where philosophers meet and
Yeah.
argue and speak, and not necessarily political decisions are made, but where the greatest minds come together to talk.
Yeah.
And it's usually a public open forum unless it's closed with private matters, but there would be maybe a small sunken auditorium nearby, maybe near the castle. That it is people's full-time jobs to be philosophers and scribes and to sit down and think these big questions and come up with what are the themes and strategies and whatnot. So
my friends are gonna think it's my friends are gonna think it's so ironic that I wrote this.
Oh yeah,
I have an express hatred of philosophy.
Oh, do you?
I don't. I had to take a philosophy class in school, and I hated every second of it. I think we're still gonna keep it. I think it's good for me.
I think
my friends are gonna laugh at me and make so much fun of me for rolling this.
I think that we've got two things. First of all, my initial thought, and I've always said this. Philosophy class is only as good as the teacher.
Yeah, well, it didn't help that it was an online class, so the teacher wasn't like there was no help from the teacher really.
Yeah, fair enough. Like, it's hard to get into your class debates and shit when it's online. But
I digress. Some philosophers are okay, but
this is going to be interesting though, because what you're going to be able to see here, we have chosen 5 different groups of people: Goliaths, humans, half-elves, sea elves, and goblins.
Yes.
I'm sure that the half-elves and sea elves are kind of like looked at out of the corner of their eye because of the nearby elven empire, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want okay, hold on. I'm gonna make this perfectly clear. It's not that I like that there is resentment towards these races. I think it's interesting that there is some, because of the Elven Empire, just so that we're perfectly clear here.
It's good game design to have systems.
Yes.
And easily, because it's D&D and it's not, Game of Thrones or something like World of Warcraft, which is huge and expansive. Like D&D, you often have to rely on stereotypes and tropes just to get through the story quickly. So having easily identifiable enemies is decent game design. I am not promoting racism, but I am saying there's definitely that concept of otherism in D&D, and it's worth thinking about. But between the half-elves, the sea elves, and the goblins, this gymnasium would have 5 different groups of people that are coming together to argue 5 very different philosophies and perspectives on life, right?
Yeah,
and what direction are we heading in? And maybe there's a single trusted knight or philosopher or something that isn't one of these, right? Like these are the main people, but maybe there's a tabaxi that runs it as a neutral mediator, right?
Yeah, I think it's important that there should be a neutral mediator, because the Goliaths are going to, so a Goliath will go, only the strong survive, because that's their entire way of life. Humans are going to say, we have to help each other. We are a society together. The half-elves will go, we have to try to find a medium with our neighbors. The sea elves are going to.
So sea elves are weird. But they're still going to be part sea, but mostly elf. They're going to be focused on the idea of nature still, because that's elves. Otherwise, we have Tritons, right? Yeah. So if we lean into sea elves, they're going to have an eye on the things like, if everyone's talking about creating new farmland because we want to be able to expand the town, the Goliaths say, yeah, we can carve out part of the mountainside, and the humans are going to be like, yeah, we've got the tools to help. And the goblins are going to be like, and we can work on the irrigation. But the sea elves are going to be the ones that say, hey, you got to do it quickly, and you can't do it in the rainy season, because if you cut down all the trees in that area, you won't have a root system, which means now you get mudslides. Yeah. And we know that, and you don't, right? Yeah. And so is this a good idea? Should we do it in small sections, or should we try to do it all at once? Or where are we going to get the labor for that? And should we hire people on? And so as much as they're not necessarily a town council making these decisions, they are people sitting here saying, what about this? Did you think about that? And when we get into philosophy, it would be, is it worth it? The town is large enough. At what point does this become unwieldy, and the natural world around us will start to kick us out, right?
Yeah, there has to be. I think the seals are trying to bring balance to the very ambitious humans and Goliaths of this town.
And what's interesting here is that we would not even have this conversation as being something that's worth bringing up in D&D if we hadn't randomly rolled it on the public's works as being like, hey, this is what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, this is wonderful.
So those are all first impressions. These are the things you're going to see when you walk in. Huge town square, a massive gymnasia where there are people in robes walking around having quiet conversations before the next public forum, right? You've got a vendor that's in your face. You've got clear signs, maybe graffiti or something, of thugs and organized crime. There are
Yeah.
port defenses with these massive like donkey wheels you would see as you come into the port, the police station, whatever the dungeon or jail is. It's like up a tower or hanging off a cliff, or maybe an entire cliffside, that sheer cliff has just a bunch of like barred windows in it, and that's the
Ooh.
dungeon. So it's just like everyone can see where the criminals are, and late at
Yeah.
night you can hear them yelling and moaning and wailing down, right? Like, and then we've got these moats that are these so many little footpaths and this gigantic dam ready to wipe them all out if we need, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So that's what you notice when you first come in. But now your players have come in, they've sat down, and they're like, all right, what else can we do with our downtime? So we're going to roll twice in each of these, and we're going to run through them a little bit quicker because these ones are a little bit more simple.
Yeah.
So D10 table for what I call recovery. The players come in and they need to regain spell slots and hit points. They need to replenish their gear. So where are they going?
So I got a 6 and a 9. A good old 69.
Nice. All right. So we are going to see immediately a tavern, which I mean that tracks. There are three taverns. 30% of this table is taverns, and 20% are inns, because that's where they go first, right?
Yeah, exactly. Sorry.
But we also ended up at a doctor's house, right? And maybe that's one of the things that they know is like when adventurers come in and check in at a tavern or an inn or whatnot, there's a posting or someone is there to say, hey, look, you guys just came in. Don't forget to swing by the doctor's house.
Yeah.
Right. He is going to take care of this or give you a charm that does that, or he's got herbs that can help you with the cold or the salty air or whatever it is, right? So and the tavern is going to be noteworthy because all taverns are. We'll give it a funky name and a silly bartender, and now we have a noteworthy tavern. So
yes, that could be a whole episode in itself, making an entire tavern.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be at some point. The next table is for food. Where do you get your food from?
Okay, I rolled double ones. I can re-roll one of them for sure.
Yeah,
right?
re-roll. Although, if I can be honest, you rolled baker twice, which could be two opposing bakers. And so, like, when you walk down Main Street, there is a huge baker on each side of the road that's massive emporiums of, like, baked goods and the smell of sweets coming down as the two shopkeepers glare at each other through the window. And that's fun, right? So I've got no problem. You got like the fat halfling on one side and the furbolg on the other. They just hate each other so much because I had raisin tarts last week and now he's doing it, but he had fucking cinnamon, right? Like
that's actually way better than the second roll.
What'd you get for the second roll?
I mean, it fits. I got a silo.
Yes. So what's interesting about this, and I have at the end of the list a granary, a silo, and a water tower. The reason that they're here is because they should be noteworthy.
Yes.
When we're talking about this port area, and we've got farmlands and less lush foliage or whatnot, we don't have is grains. And that is an absolute important thing to have. And so the silo is necessary because if anything happens to it, the population is threatened.
Yeah.
Which means there would be ships coming in with major grain imports. There would be merchants on the road. The people that do produce wheat or corn in limited amounts would probably be pretty fucking rich as well. Yeah. And so whoever runs the silo, I bet it has a military presence. I bet it is reinforced against the wind, and I bet that there's giant signs on it, right? And like this is a feature of the town. So yeah, let's talk now for a moment about the next one on the list.
Social. Ooh, okay. Let's see. Okay, I got a 10 and a 5.
A 10 and a 5. All right. So social here is not necessarily like where you go to have social encounters or to be sociable. Like that's your tavern, right? That's
yeah.
That's your gymnasia. What we've got here are like the social works that are presented. This included, although we didn't roll them, churches, temples, altars, universities, schools, and whatnot. You rolled an orphanage because, of course, you did a Dungeons and Dragons. There has to be an orphanage.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
it has to burn down by some mysterious reason, the classics. And then you get a rogue out of it.
it's what we do, right? The local
Yeah.
Assassin's Guild, it just steals kids every once in a while from the
Yeah,
orphanage.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So, but as far as our orphanage goes, is it busy? Where are these orphans coming from? This is a
I
rich area.
I think that because, of course, we are a coastal town and we established the wind is quite treacherous, so the sea will be treacherous. The orphans are coming from fishermen, like that have been lost at sea.
I like that, and I want to lean into it, but I want to take it a step in a different direction to be magical as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, sure.
Every so often, and there's no way to tell when it happens, a child walks out of the woods, and this is why we have that rumor about a Fey portal.
That's good. Ooh, make them changelings and bam, because they're Fey now. Bam, there you go.
Yep, cool. And
Perfect.
changelings just come wandering out. They're always children. They never know where they've been, but there's
Yeah,
always like flower necklaces on them,
yeah.
and they're always wearing clothes made out of gigantic leaves or shit, right? Like they look like Peter Pan rejects, right? So
Yeah, they didn't get the audition. The other guy got it.
so like that's I like there's like the fisherman side of it as well. So you've
Yeah,
got these two worlds clashing in the orphanage. And maybe this has
yeah,
only been going on for like the last 16 years. People like these kids keep walking out of the woods every couple of months
yeah,
and we don't know why. And they haven't hit maturity yet, but
yeah.
like they're now in a medieval society, they're 16, or maybe they walked out when they were 4 years old. So now they're 20 and no one knows what to do with these fucking changelings.
Yeah,
So
I think that's a bit of fun, that having those societies, as you said, clashing, because it's such stark differences
yeah.
between the two. So there's going to be a clash, like these kids that have no idea what's going on, and then these kids that just lost their dad or mom at sea,
Yeah,
or both.
and there's would be such a sense of sadness to both of them for not knowing.
Yeah.
Like, is it worse to know, or is it like to remember your loss, or to have no memory of it at all? Right? Like, that's a theme. You like, man, I could write a freaking six session little mini campaign around this. But the other thing that you rolled was a scribe.
Yeah.
My favorite thing to do with scribes, and I do this semi-frequently, is just have them follow the party around and want to record them, like The Witcher, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to have access to tomes and to books and whatnot that they might not have for long periods of time because it would go to other libraries or it would go, there's a family tree or history or something that gets passed from town to town. And so they might
Yeah.
only have it for a short period of time and they've got to transcribe it. Or they want to make a few copies, one for a university, one for the library, one for the church, and one for the palace. But all that shit is done by hand. Now, we've got high magic, so it could just be quills going and one guy that's just like casting magic on a quill to go, but he has to do it every single day for 100 days. And then that quill and ink will do it by itself because that's how you make a spell permanent, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so there's this one like overworked, exhausted mage that's sitting there casting it, using up all of his spell slots every day on just making quills go. All right, I have 12 spell slots. I've got these 12 quills, and I'm on day 89. I cannot be interrupted. I have to get back to them today.
Yeah, exactly. You can't go on a random adventure on a whim.
Yeah, and so like there's shit to do with scribes as well. I do like the idea of them following the party around
Oh yeah.
and recording their shit, but also they could be trying to write this knowledge down. Can you imagine what happens if there is a curse that's written in one of the books or a forbidden knowledge that a scribe comes across and has to write it down and then learns the thing they shouldn't know?
Ooh, yeah.
So there are plot hooks to be had here. There are reasons to make a scribe notable.
Yeah. 100%.
All right. The next one is just housing and storage. We've got 3 different levels of houses. And then also I have 3 different entries for warehouse on a D8 table.
There we go. Okay. I rolled the same thing 3 times. Jesus
What'd you get?
Christ. So I rolled sheds 3 times, but I rolled a shed and a warehouse in the end.
Okay, so there is housing, there are tenements, there are places for people to stay and live. That's fine.
Yes.
There is a specific warehouse that is maybe built on the water or something. Like it literally floats and ships can come into it, right? So
Yeah.
like, or it's a warehouse that holds all the magic items, and there is a strong town guard presence. There are 2 knights
Oh
stationed,
yeah.
right? So
Oh yeah.
there are all sorts of ways that we can make warehouses important, and I think that that's abandoned largely in Dungeons and Dragons. I love having warehouse districts because
Yeah.
there are places where you keep your broken down carts, where you just need to store shit.
Yeah.
And like I don't know any city, any town, any suburb that doesn't have storage units that people can rent out or garages or anything. That's what we need in a warehouse. So
Yes. I agree.
um, the other one is sheds. Now,
Yes.
I like having little outbuildings all over the place. I think it makes for good, fun adventures. If we
Mhm.
just have unique sheds that are in the shape of like teepees, like they're all cones, right?
Yeah.
Or
Hmm.
they are, every one of them is painted green, a bright green, so that, or they all have a ward on them so that when they open or close, like it makes a small ringing noise because they're
Oh yeah. Yeah.
outbuildings and
Yeah. Yeah.
people want to be able to hear if someone's in their shed, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe sometimes those sheds aren't actually sheds and they're areas with stairs that go down into underground tunnels that connect to the house. And they're like places to escape to in case of a fire or a raid or something, right?
Yeah.
This was originally based on a war town, like a fort. So maybe there are escape
Hmm.
tunnels under the city and the
Oh yeah.
sheds are
Oh
built on top of the access points,
yeah.
right?
That's cool. I like
So
that.
there's lots of reasons that we can put sheds in and make them interesting or unique. And again, it's something people don't think about. We want to go into the house, but my favorite thing to do is I did this to my players recently where there were a bunch of large spiders and they went hunting around inside the house and found webs and found bodies and like that were dried out and desiccated, but they couldn't find the fucking spiders. And they went out to the
Ooh,
barns and
okay.
they couldn't find the spiders. Spiders are in the shed. It's a tight, enclosed, dark area, right? That they have control over. So these giant spiders went in and then closed the fucking door behind them and laid egg sacs in there, right?
Oh, yikes.
Let's jump into exploring the town.
Yes, we're ready. It's the D8 table to
So
begin with.
we're only going to roll once on each one of these tables because this is beyond what like at this point we have so many unique features
Yeah,
that this is when they go out and they take the initiative and they could honestly say, hey, I want to go to this place or that place or this place, that place, whatever. But
yeah,
we've got options in here to make things a little bit more interesting as they just say, I don't know, where should I go? Right.
yeah.
Because I have some players they don't know how to use their downtime. So
I
the
barely
first
know
one
how
is
to use
just
my downtimes.
features. These are just they're not places where people live. These are just items
Yeah,
or objects or structures in the town.
I got a 7. I got inner walls.
So the inner walls are going to be noteworthy.
Apparently.
Um, they don't have to be as fantastical as the other ones. We could just have them be like there are 2 rings of inner walls, and one's called
Oh
the
yeah,
iron and one's called the bronze. And so the gates are painted to look like, or they're made of, or the guards posted there wear helmets of iron or bronze, depending on where they're
yeah.
located.
I think inner walls could definitely also then make it also almost a class system where the outermost wall, inner wall, is maybe the poorer, and the closer to the center you go, maybe the more or vice versa. However somebody decide to do it.
No, I really like that. You got the castle in the middle, and
Yeah,
middle. It's built into the cliff, right? But like,
yeah,
so we're dealing with a semicircle, but like castle in the middle, and then nobility, and then probably merchants,
yeah,
and finally your poor and your docks, right? And maybe
yeah.
you need papers to get into the nobility section. Like, not just
Oh
anybody
yeah,
can go in. You have to either have an invite by one of the nobles with their seal on it, or you have to be a merchant or a traveler with diplomatic papers or something because it's blocked off.
absolutely,
So
absolutely. And I think that's a cool thing as well, having the guards be different for each. Like probably the closer the Maybe there are fewer with each ring, but they are either wearing more armor or more trained or so and such. So that,
Like
you know,
it's
there are less of them, but there are more. There's quality over quantity. The inner you go.
yeah, I like that. Like there's an actual knight that's posted up, by
Yeah,
the nobility, whereas they don't bother with that. That's enough. We can just have the basic town guards doing
yeah.
patrol down at the docks, right? Which raises the question, and not something we have to answer now, but like, is there a disparity in between the two, the town guards and the knights? Is there a resentment or an anger, or do they work together, right?
I think they would always work together, but there's definitely resentment either way because the knights probably because they know that they are better, and the town guards obviously want to have still some authority, but they have none over the knights. The knights go in and do what they want, and the
Yeah.
town guard often has to clean up, if you will.
Yeah. Next, let's talk about animals. We've got a few farmers and even shepherds, but also some businesses that will support animals. So,
Where's my deep? There it is. I got a 3, a farmer.
farmer. So this is going to be when your players say, "I want to go talk to one of the farmers and find out." You've got one prepped, right? And so
Yeah.
you would choose what one of the crops are that grows bigger or more plentiful, or a farmer that's struggling, or a farmer with a complaint, right? Like, hey,
Yeah.
I lost some of my land in a natural incident, natural disaster. I lost some of my land. I keep waiting for it to come back, but it's low priority comparatively. And yet
Yeah.
they're building a new monument over on the castle. Like you can this when we end up with farmers, I want to think about two things. One, what are they farming? And two, how successful are they?
Yeah. I I'll admit when I read Farmer and Shepherd, I went my instinctive thought because of how it works in Iceland is those are the same thing, but obviously they aren't in other countries. So
The
farmer
difference
specifically crops
No, the difference
usually.
with the farmer and a shepherd is shepherds are out there free range and roaming out in the
Right.
hillside
Okay.
with the whole flock of sheep or with
All
all
right.
of the herd of cattle, and they keep them out and about in like grazing the like wild grassland, and then they know at night or after a certain number of days to bring them in to either get sheared or slaughtered or whatnot.
Right.
um
Okay.
so
Okay.
their job is to watch over them, to guide them, but also to protect them from natural predators, right?
Yeah. Of
Whereas
course.
farmers have buildings and structures and pens and whatnot. So you'll get pigs at a farm, you'll get dairy cows at a farm, but you might get like free range beef with a shepherd. A farmer owns the cows and the cattle, but a shepherd's the one that manages it day in day out. So
Yeah. The reason for my confusion is these are something a farmer just does in Iceland. Like he does both of these things mostly. That's why there's the confusion.
okay, well, like it can be I often think like farmer can also be crops, right?
Yeah.
Whereas a shepherd never is. The other thing
Yeah.
that
All
we could
right.
do with
But
the farmer is we could pick one of those interesting like monstrosities or just add an interesting magical quality to a beast. So like this is the farmer that has the sheep that can scream 3 times as louder as any other sheep, and like so the farmer is deaf, right? Like we can just it's a fantasy world. We can just do random weird things like, hey, these pigs have wings.
pigs flying, I suppose.
Yeah, right, exactly. But like we would have this massive barn, and you would walk in, and before you go in, you grab an umbrella
Yeah.
because the pigs are up in the rafters floating around, and pig shit is not like bird shit.
No.
You need an umbrella, and it's got to be hefty, right?
Yeah.
So
My
like
my my immediate thought when you said magical monstrosity was this farmer just has one auroch for no reason, just by
abs
accident.
like and is trying to breed the auroch with all the cattle to make heftier, sturdier, larger
Yeah.
cattle for beasts of burden, right? Or like who knows why. So
I
like
mean,
you could
what aurochs are with orcs most of the time, right? There are orcs in the mountains.
yes.
So it's not that like it's not a it's not a long way to go to for them to get lost, and then you find them, and bam, you got a
Yeah,
big fucking cow.
big fucking battle cow.
Yeah.
So that'd actually be really neat. Is the farmer that you have is the only one that has experience breaking and taming aurochs to be
Ooh,
used as beasts of
yeah,
burden instead of creatures of war.
that would be cool. Yeah, I like that.
Let's roll for smiths.
Smiths. Yeah, I will say I did like the fact that you distinguished silver, gold, gem, and blacksmiths because I've seen a lot of people just kind of mesh it into one.
I get really, really annoyed with the way that smiths work. You'll notice that over with the animals, we had a farrier as well, which
Yeah.
is someone that does horseshoes specifically,
Oh
right?
yeah. This is something I did know as well. That was also a very nice touch.
So what'd you roll for smiths?
I rolled a goldsmith.
Goldsmith. Well, I guess we know what's in the mountains and why we've got some money here.
There is gold.
There's gold nearby. Maybe not enough for there to be a mine, but enough for
No.
them to go into the streams and rivers and whatnot and pan for gold. Are you familiar with that, or is that like
Yes. No. 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 I am aware. I am aware of it. I have tried it. Tried it.
yeah, yeah, yeah? It's
But
actually a
nah.
part of the curriculum, or it was when I was a kid here in British Columbia, because
Mhm.
we're close enough to the Yukon and Alaska and the gold rush,
Oh
right? That
right.
if
Yeah.
you go up into the interior, there are still gold rush towns that are mostly ghost towns now. They're mostly empty.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time you can go in and they've got some sort of tourist attraction where you can go in and there's literal gold in there that you can sift through and pan for gold.
Nice.
And most people will walk out with a tiny little like grain of sand sized,
Yeah.
nugget of gold. So, but the idea that there would be goldsmiths here and there would be maybe not necessarily a gold rush, but I like that too because I don't think either elves or orcs would give a shit.
No. But I think definitely humans coming here that they definitely give
Yeah.
a shit or two.
Now let's talk about magic shops. Let's roll on this one.
All right. That's a facility
Now
10.
you'll notice that we did that number 10 on this is just roll twice on this table.
Oh yeah. I rolled a 6, so weapons and armor.
So there's a magical weapon and armor shop. I'm sure that this is well guarded and whatnot. But we also
Oh yeah.
decided it's high magic. So roll again.
Yes. Oh. 3 components.
So spell components, and I would probably get like a lot of. I've got as a separate entry here like consumables. So that's where you go for potions or scrolls or
Yeah.
single use wands and shit like that. Or spellcasting foci would be with components as well. There'd be herbalists and anti like magic poisons and stuff. In a town this big, they would all have their own place. But I think the like spell components, this is somewhere where like maybe it's run by a woman that everyone knows is a hag, but she's just the sweetest old woman.
Oh yeah.
But we've never seen her during the day, right? She never leaves her house, right? We've never seen her out of the markets or going to buy any food for her cat. She has a cat. How does she feed the cat? Nobody knows, right?
That
So
could
just
be a piece of important knowledge that all the locals know that she is a hag.
yeah, and like if you've got something like your pregnant wife is feeling incredibly ill and you don't know what to do, you
Yeah.
take her to the component store after hours.
Yeah.
We don't talk about what happens, but she will be better by the time that you come out, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe this is a well-meaning good witch that is actually just a hag, right? But
Yeah.
a good aligned. So I love that as local knowledge. That's fun. And when
Yeah,
you're in
because
when you're in high magic fantasy, you can keep re-rolling all this, and also roll a magic version on any one of the other tables. You end up
yeah.
with a magic monument or a magic town crier or a magic weaponsmith or a magic uh portcullis, right? Like there
Exactly.
could be all sorts of cool things that you put in here, right? So
I
but
also
that
think it
brings
fits that
us
I think it
sorry.
fits we got weapons. Yeah, I think it fits we got weapons and armor because of the history of the town that it is a frontier town essentially
Yeah.
because it has to defend itself and having probably a mage running it that
Yeah.
chants weapons and armor.
I would even not necessarily even have a mage, but maybe a paladin, like
Oh yeah,
an
or
ex
that.
holy warrior, right?
Oh yeah,
Depending on what level your party is at, I
yeah.
wouldn't necessarily have this be like +5 weapons of orc slaying. It would be these would be pieces of armor that give you +2 to stealth, or
Yeah,
there's a +1 to your AC, or gives you resistance to acid or something, right? So
yeah, exactly.
let's move into the last 4 tables. We're going to roll once on each of these, and these are all the deeper exploration. If you when your players go completely off the beaten path and they start looking for shit that no D&D player looks for, but these things are actually involved in towns, in medieval cities, and there's some
Yeah,
weird ones in here.
I have definitely had players looks for
Some of
Taylor
these,
before. Yeah,
yeah, but I think your average adventurer is not going to give a shit about some of this. So let's roll.
no. All right. A 10, a bathhouse.
Yeah, we got a bathhouse. There we go.
I have been the player looking for a bathhouse.
The bathhouse is noteworthy because what happens in the bathhouse stays in the bathhouse. Um,
Exactly.
I think that this would be a. You'll notice I don't have on this table a brothel or anything
Yeah,
because I don't think that's appropriate for all medieval towns
yeah,
in our
exactly.
fantasy world. And I don't
I
know what
agree.
people's session zeros look like. However, that very much is a factor in medieval towns. There are brothels and
Yes.
bordellos and shit. So a bathhouse can double as that, or it can just be we have sea elves. This place
Yeah.
is a bathhouse. It is a fountain house of
Oh yeah.
warm water that's always steaming, and you can go in and relax in and among the arcing waterways and the beautiful stone fountains and all that shit too, right?
I think definitely the philosophers would frequent this in their time as well to sit just and relaxing,
Yeah,
or anyone really, because I keep getting things that fit because in Iceland our entire thing is like hot tubs.
yeah,
Like we have like 2,000 something swimming pools, and there's a hot tub in one guaranteed, at least two hot tubs in each. So it's a very big thing here.
that's cool.
And this is a gathering place for us. Like I have planned with friends before that we're going to a hot tub and we're going to chill.
Look, and that's cool. It's fun. Most of the hot tubs here, like all of the aquatic centers, like pools and like Olympic pools, but also like leisure pools with wading and
Yeah,
kids can fuck around in. They always have a hot tub here, but most of the hot
yeah,
tubs are in people's backyards. And I'm gonna say, at least in my neighborhood, although I know this isn't true everywhere, about every fourth or fifth house has a hot tub. Like it's
oh yeah,
common, but it's not everybody. So
yeah, exactly.
I like the idea of the bathhouse being noteworthy because if you need to talk to someone, if you need to make a deal, if you need to go around official channels, catch them in the bathhouse. This
Yeah,
is where, like American politicians make all of their deals on the golf course. You're
yeah.
making your deals in the bathhouse of this city.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So,
That's fun.
so let's look at the next tables. This is all the legal shit, guild halls, courthouse, all that kind of shit.
I rolled a 3.
Courthouse. The courthouse can be noteworthy because it looms over town square.
Oh yeah,
And also, it's noteworthy because we have a castle with a duke in it,
yeah,
but the duke is not passing judgment on the people. We have an
no,
actual legal system here. If we
yes,
wanted the duke to do it, we would just re-roll on this table. But we
yes,
we can have a legal system so that he's more in charge of the military and the economics and less the law, right?
yeah,
They may still need his signature or his seal of approval on it,
yes. I
but
definitely think so. Like if a crime is so severe that somebody is put to death, I think that the Duke def would have
yes,
to sign this.
yeah, but disputes between land borders for farmers or the
Yeah,
town drunk crossed a line last night,
yeah.
that's not for
That's
Duke doesn't give a shit.
he has more important matters to do.
I think that this is where I have lawyers and advocate on the list, but we decided on knights, and I think that part of the knight's job would be I was in charge of this area, or I made the arrest myself of this person.
Yeah,
I'm going to come forward and present the evidence to a council of 3 or 4 or 5 other knights. And maybe that's what the courthouse looks like, right?
Yeah, just it's like they're just sitting on a round table. Just
a squished oval table, if you will. What do we want to say about the next section, which is just general laborers? I come up with a D12 for these guys.
Alrighty. I rolled a 4, a woodcarver.
Woodcarvers. The difference between a woodcarver and a carpenter and a forester is a forester gets you the lumber. The carpenter helps with the finer work of building houses and whatnot, but a woodcarver does the fine detail.
Yeah, the carpenter also coughs and complains about his back pain a lot.
Both Dan and I were carpenters. Dan was for years. I only did it for about a year. And man, the physical nature of that job was great for me. I had a lot of fun with that. I liked the guys on it, but the back breaking labor, because I was doing baseboards all day. I was fucking done. Like, we would do apartment buildings and just you start the day off because the elevator's not working, carrying doors up 27 flights of stairs, and then
yikes.
And then you go down, you use the bathroom for the last time that day because you're never doing stairs again. And then you head back up to whatever floor 23 you're on, and then it's crouching and bending over with a nail gun and shuffling along on your knees, and like that was brutal. I couldn't do it now.
Yeah, I only poked fun at it because I come from a long line of carpenters.
Yep. Although I will say the one thing about carpenters that I respect more than anything else is they just know the length of things at a glance.
Oh yeah.
In a way that nobody else does.
I got blessed with some of that, but I don't use it much.
And then the last item that we have here is actually items. These are going to be more merchants that sell specific things.
Yes. All right. That's a D8.
D8 table. Yep.
I rolled a 2, a cartwright.
Cartwright. So the person's going to buy.
I did say that right.
Or the person's going to buy, sell, and make and repair carts. If we've got the mountain passes that you've got to go through, right? If you're coming in from the west along the coast through mountain passes and whatnot, people are coming with carts. And that's going to be a major industry in this area, and that makes a lot of sense that there would be
100%.
Someone who's probably not necessarily a noble, but one of the richer people in town that is dealing with this. So
I definitely think so. But and it's also not just like the run of the mill cart either. He probably would sell those, but these would be like, because they have to go through mountain passes where the roads aren't exactly always in top condition, so they have to be at least sturdy in some way.
Yeah, we kind of went past the stoneworkers and the masons. Like, there was a bunch of stuff on this list that people haven't heard. Like I say, the patrons will be able to check this out. We're also going to talk about all of the things on these lists. Actually, by the time that this episode that we're recording right now comes out, we will have already released episode 251, which is going to be the shit that you find in a town. And that's kind of breaking it down a little bit. So I gave you this breakdown, these random tables and whatnot. That only took me like 20 minutes because I had all my notes still. So.
Nice.
But making them random tables is fun. It's definitely more interesting to be rolling on them. So just to be clear, let me go through. These are the points of interest in our small city.
Yes.
I'm going to start from the beginning of the episode. It's a high magic area with a coastal mountain and a coastal mountainous range. The coast is on the south side. Yes. There's fertile land all over the place, abnormally so, and the flora and greenery are lush. Goliaths, humans, half-elves, sea elves, and goblins have come together in a community that is pretty good and favorable, safe for the population, and even the thugs and the organized crime are not trying to tear down the system, right? They're just making their own little life here. Everyone's relatively happy. It is part of a larger kingdom that is off to the west, and this is considered a border town. It's at the edge of the kingdom. Although a lot of independent traders do come through, it's not a major, massive port town.
No.
We've got a castle that's built into the cliffside. We've got cannons at the that are on the outer walls that shoot fireballs. And there are a number of bridges in the city and around the city, getting to and from over waterways, but also across valleys and stuff from the mountains. So
Yeah.
lots of bridge fights coming up in our campaign.
Yes.
We've got a system that is run by a duke and his trusted knights. There are a number of knights. It's not like there's 6 of them, there's like 20 of them.
Yeah.
But they've also got a number of town guards as well, because there are merchants that are coming in, but also the fact that we've got some neighboring threats. So there's a pretty decent military presence that tends to be focused, honestly, more on the exterior than on the interior of the town, because it's happy, right?
Yeah, exactly. The people are content.
Yeah. We've got the Duke himself is actually a hero. He's done some great things in the past, probably combat related, and he's a local celebrity.
Yep.
The city welcomes all pantheons and doesn't particularly prescribe to one god or goddess or another, but we can expect that there will be multiple churches, temples, and neutral worship sites as well. Although I would assume that most people have an altar within their own home. So
yeah.
We do know that to the north, there are a number of orcs and a massive war band that have threatened the town before. As a matter of fact, that's just occurring to me now, if the coast is at the south, I assume the cliff faces to the north. So the orcs would actually be at the cliff. So this cliff face should be like 700 feet high. So they don't like rappel down the cliff.
Yeah.
They have been clashing with the Goliaths. To the east, we've got the evil Elven Empire that is secretly being manipulated by a green dragon, but nobody knows that.
Yeah.
The wilderness around us is full of, like I said, lush greenery, but also plant monsters and fae, and maybe a portal to the Feywild that sometimes changeling children just wander out of, but nobody's certain what the deal is and all of that.
Yeah.
It's incredibly windy in this area, which means that we have a lot of walls and fences and protective measures against that. I would say probably most buildings have windows with shutters. So
absolutely, yeah.
The town itself has been around for 400 years, although it's really been thriving for the last 300 after the last war ended. There was a war against the orcs, and there was one big battle that happened, and one of the survivors was actually the kind of founder of this town that looked around and said, hey, it can be more than just a fort. It's actually really fertile land.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some people think that our Duke here bought his lordship, but that's not true. The king just recognized how fantastic he is. And
he's just great. He's just the best guy around, you know?
He just really is. And he's keeping it so that everybody's moderately wealthy. Yeah. Everybody's living a comfortable life. When you come into town, the first things you're going to notice are the unique moats and this incredibly strange dungeon that we have that's unique to this landscape. We've got some port defenses, which include a massive donkey wheel with a chain across it, and a police station that is probably by the town square so that people can see it. It's got a presence. It's going to be apart from the courthouse.
Yes. Yeah. That's great, actually. Yeah.
Down by the docks, we've got some thugs, some organized crimes. It might be goblins, but maybe it's more multicultural than that. We have some vendors. Sometimes they're trinkets, but there's going to be one or two that just get right in your face. Sometimes it's
of course
flowers or baubles or whatever. We ended up with a pretty significant town square. I assume that maybe it's like really smooth cobblestone with some monuments and some benches and a little bit of greenery here and there that's tended to by gardeners or groundskeepers. And we have a gymnasium nearby where the philosophers meet. The philosophers also like to hang out at the bathhouse.
Yep. Well, that's where you make the other types of deals under the table.
You're also going to notice the inner walls that separate the different levels of wealth as well, the different districts that we have. And there's going to be an interesting farmer who has probably got some sort of unique cattle situation with the Aurochs. We've got a goldsmith because there's a lot of gold in the region. And we've got some magic shops, specifically weapons and armor because of the history of the town, but also a lot of components as well between the merchant trade and the local geography with all of the wildlife and whatnot. These would be major landmarks within the town. But your players are going to notice the tavern first because they always do. They'll be directed to the doctor's house because that's going to be the person that might be able to help with exhaustion, or maybe there are a couple of creatures nearby that turn people blind or deaf, or a Medusa lives around the corner and the doctor can undo the petrification if you can drag that statue back. We've got
just hope that your friend is not a Goliath barbarian when he got turned to stone. Otherwise,
yeah.
you're not getting that thing.
We only send in halflings. That way we can carry them back. We've got a very significant silo because we don't have a whole lot of grain in here. It's very well protected, and it's the backbone of the survivability. Besides trade,
yeah.
We've got. Did we like the two bakers that hate each other? Are we just going to have two bakers that?
Oh, we're also going to have two bakers that hate each other. I love that. That's great.
And so the main street, everyone knows for a couple of blocks, it just smells like amazing baked goods in this area. We've got an orphanage that is almost 50% these strange changeling children that come out of the wilderness and no one knows why. And also 50% orphans of fishermen who have gone missing and were claimed by the sea. We've got an interesting scribe with an interesting plot hook. We've got unique sheds that might hold some secrets to the history of the town, and a large warehouse. Maybe it floats out in the water, but we do know that we've got an important cart right here. And I would say that maybe this is a warehouse that is full of broken down carts or cart pieces or unique bits and pieces of magical items you can add to carts, so that they can drive themselves or defend themselves or whatnot.
Absolutely.
The only other thing of note that we've talked about is we also have a wood carver as well, who is particularly skilled and talented at carving. I would maybe even link them to that vendor, and it's that's what the vendor sells. And so when we have a plot hook like the vendor's been robbed or the wood carver's been killed, we bring the two of them, these two things close together. So
absolutely.
So there are two things left to do on this. Three things. One, because we're dungeon masters, we draw a map.
Maps. Yes.
Two.
I love maps.
I in my head I have pictured the layout of this already, and I would.
Same.
Two is we need to populate the city now with our NPCs, and that'll be sometime in the future. We would deal with that. And three, we've got to name the town. Naming the town is the hardest fucking thing to do.
Oh yeah, it is. It is definitely a tough one. Come on, work for me. There you go.
Do you want to sit down sometime in the next little bit, you and me, and do a sequel episode where we flesh out some NPCs and we? Oh, the other thing we missed is there is a hag who runs a store, and nobody, like, everybody knows it, but nobody talks about it.
Yeah, because she does no harm.
Yeah.
Or at least none that. Well, yeah. She does no harm. She genuinely wants to help.
So, do you want to sit down and go over NPCs and naming the town some other time?
Absolutely.
And we can properly flesh this out. And hell, we probably have enough here for a 20-page gazetteer as it stands right now.
What the fuck is a gazetteer?
Oh, you don't know this. Okay, so this is a thing that is essentially like a local atlas. It breaks down all of the places within a small, like usually a city or a small county or something. So it's for travelers to come in and what to look at, what to gaze at, the gazetteer.
Okay,
So,
okay.
Like, what are the features here? It often includes celebrities and statues and monuments and history of the town and stuff. And it's like a pamphlet, a brochure. But Dungeons and Dragons has been doing this up until 5th edition. Whenever there's a unique setting that they hand out, like we got, there's one on D&D Beyond right now for Baldur's Gate.
Oh,
but when you pick up the Planescape book, and it comes with the 3 separate books inside it because it's a box set. The first one is called Sigil and the Borderlands. And that's actually a gazetteer. That's what you're like, because it breaks down your locale.
Okay. Yeah. I had just never in my life heard the word gazetteer. So
I think that if you had been around in 3.5 specifically, there were all sorts of Forgotten Realms and Greyhawk and Dragonlance and all of the important places had one. Even the Feywild, I think, had one, and Shadowfell had one. And
Oh wow.
we get little 4-page versions of Gazetteers all the way through Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft as they break down all the little dread domains and shit, right?
Nice. All right.
So
Yeah, that's fun.
yeah, so we've got enough for probably 20 pages, depending on how much we wanted to get into the finer details. 20
Oh,
pages of information about this city. It doesn't even have a name or a populace yet,
hey,
right?
but
So
all in due time.
and there will be other things to think about as well, like what's the heraldry for the knights? What does the flag look like? What are the common traders? What guilds are set up here? Right? There's a lot. Is there a single diplomat that is called upon that lives here and his only job is to deal with the elves if something happens? Right? Like we've got some options. What about the one half orc in town that was a bastard offspring of lovers, couple across like Romeo and Juliet with the orc war bands, but nobody trusts him now, right? Like because he's the only orc in town. So we've got all sorts of options to get into in the future. But do you have any final thoughts on the building of the geography of the town? Anything that we've covered today that you're like, yes, and this?
I mean, I think because we mentioned it, there should be at least a forest somewhere, given that the Elven Empire is there and they're all about nature, and we all know elves love trees.
Between the Fae, the plants, the elves, and the green dragon, I assume that these are forested mountains.
Yes.
Until you get up to the peaks, and then that's where the Goliaths roam, up in the rocky peaks. So,
oh, excuse me. I think that's really it. I think. Really trying to think of more stuff here, but not that there should be necessary. We've done so much.
Was there anything in the random tables that you're like, I wish we had rolled that?
Definitely was. Hold on. I think a blacksmith would have been fun to roll.
Yeah,
I do think so. Just having maybe a Goliath working the hammer and anvil in the background while there's maybe a human working the stand or the store itself. Having something like that, or even I'm stealing this from a friend, having a tiefling working it so that he works in extra hot environment.
There is a creature, and you used to be able to play as them in 3.5, although it required you to they had level adjustments. So if you wanted to play as more fantastical creatures like a centaur or minotaur, you would actually start at level 3 or 4, and everyone at the party would start with their human 4 fighter, but you start as a minotaur 1 fighter because you did all these. So there's this, and it does exist in the books. It's called an Azure, Azer.
Yeah, I remember these.
It's a fire dwarf. It's a dwarf with fire for hair and beard, right?
Nice.
From the elemental plane. I love those. I use them as blacksmiths all the time.
Oh yeah, that's cool as well. Yeah, there was, and I think rolling the cemetery would have been hilarious as well.
Do you know the difference? Because I have a cemetery and a graveyard on here separately. Do you know the difference between them?
Probably not. No.
A graveyard is attached to a church. A cemetery
is its own thing. I see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. In I'm pretty sure in Icelandic there's just the one word for it, or at least we only use the one word for it. So
the reason, as I understand it, and I'm sure that someone will correct me on this, but the reason that there are 2 words for it is because there were small communities during the plague that didn't have churches. Like you would get up early and go into town, but all the farmers had their own cemetery out there because people were dying too much and the graveyards were filling up too fast. So they had their own cemeteries, and it was very much a separate thing. Cemeteries, as opposed to graveyards, were looked down upon because cemeteries were not necessarily hallowed ground, but graveyard was. And so you would bless graves, and you would have a lot of these like crosses and stuff that you have as tombstones were there because we're adding a blessing to the cemetery. But this is also where we get the myths of vampires and wraiths and ghouls and zombies coming out of cemeteries because it's not hallowed ground, right?
Interesting.
So
I did not know that. That's cool.
Yeah,
Or
that's
it's an interesting piece of trivia. It's not cool that people died. Sorry.
no, it is interesting. It's also I can't remember. There's a difference between a mausoleum and a crypt as well. And if I remember correctly, crypts have tons and tons and tons of bodies. Like it's
Mm,
just the whole town is underground in this massive crypt. But a
right.
mausoleum is specifically for one family or one organization. Like you would have a mausoleum for like knights or the
Yeah.
Illuminati, right? So they're not just
I
they're
have
not
one
just buried in
question.
crypts with the regular schmoes like you and me.
Yeah. I have one question about one of these things on the first table. What
Sure.
the fuck is a
A portcullis.
portcullis? Yeah.
So I want you to think of your medieval castle with a drawbridge, and then it has that metal grate with spikes that comes down.
Okay. Yeah. Is that
That
that's a portcullis? Okay.
that's a portcullis. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Good to know. Just because I looked at it, you know, what's a bit fun to roll a fucking oil, like just pouring hot oil over enemies is my favorite piece of historic
Yeah.
like defense because it is just so out of it is just so brutal. It is just so nasty.
It is. I one of my favorite pieces of very very simple wartime defenses is from Southeast Asia, and I don't want to say what country it's from because I don't remember specifically. What they would
Mhm.
do is they would bury clay pots and put fermented cabbage in there so that the cabbage would rot, and they would bury it an inch underground. So the enemies would run in and they would step on it, and their legs would fall in and get scratched all to hell, and they would be bleeding from the sharp edges of these clay pots that they stepped with, that which then get infected. And the within like 3 or 4 days, the soldier would either lose a leg or die
Oh my
because it was
god.
such wet, humid landscape as well that you need to keep it dry and you have to get off of it, and that's not an option, right, for an invading army. So,
Jesus Christ.
oh, people are insane, creative, but brutal.
Oh
So I
yeah.
always think of the oil from above and the clay
Yeah.
pots, these pre-industrial revolution mines that they were
Oh
making.
yeah. That's insane. That's a fun piece of trivia, huh?
Yeah, we there are things on this list that didn't make it, like an aviary for birds that can pass
Yeah.
messages. There's an,
Hawks or pigeons or ravens, if you will.
an apiary if you wanted bees to make honey. Like there's so much more that
Oh,
didn't make it onto this list,
yeah.
and that's fine. And there are items on here that you look at and be like, I don't need that in mine. It doesn't. We're doing a village. I don't need there to be a buckle maker,
I
right?
don't need a fucking gymnasia in this fucking town.
Right. So like
This
we roll on the
is
table, but it's definitely something to think about for I consider cities, right? So
yeah.
do you have any people or social media accounts or projects or anything you'd like to shout out or mention before we wrap it up?
No, just that my friends could go fuck themselves once again. No.
How dare you listen to me designing shit?
No, not really. Well, my one of my friends wanted to say hi to you. You and him have spoken a few times on the Reddit. Apparently,
Oh yeah.
he wanted to send his regards.
Well, hello, mystery stranger who I've spoken to today, but I don't even know who I'm talking about right now. Does he have a Reddit
There's
handle?
yeah, was it? I think it was. It's pronounced crises, but it's KRI9IS. I don't
I
fucking
know
know.
this guy. All right, yeah.
Yeah, there you
Well,
go.
hello. It's funny. There is a creature in Ravnica called a Krasis, and
Oh,
it's that's what his handle looks like. And in my head, I've always called him Krasis. So, all right, okay,
crises.
I'm with
Yeah.
you.
uh,
So,
he wanted to send his regards to you and the world.
I hope he doesn't send them like a Lannister send their regards because
No,
that's
that's how I would send you regards.
thanks. So
We'll see.
so I'm gonna make all of this into a nice clean document and send it to you, Andri, so we can sit down and talk about it. I'm gonna post these random tables again on the Patreon for anybody that wants to go check it out and download them. I'll put them on there as an attachment for everyone. Again, these are guidelines, and I hope they're helpful for people to think about larger cities, and even if you just keep it off to the side, inside your DM screen, anytime you go in there, when they say, well, where can I go? What can I look at? What can I do? You've got a few dozen options here of shit to investigate with your
I mean,
players.
yeah, just looking over this, was it yesterday that I got this, I think. Then and now, just there are things here that I would have never have thought about putting into a town or a city.
I have
Like,
done this so many times, and I'm always looking for a new thing to make my city feel different than the last one.
oh yeah,
And that's why these are important to me, because I can do any village as just a huts and a tavern and a general store.
yeah, exactly.
Right? So, but anyway, that's it for this discussion on building a town. Thank you, Andri, for choosing this topic, creating this with me, and supporting the Patreon. And thank you to the listeners for listening to another episode of the It's a Mimic podcast. If you'd like to support us, we have a donate button on our website, www.itsamimic.com, a store with some It's a Mimic merch, and a Patreon. This episode and others can also be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and most other podcast apps. Thanks again for listening to It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're going to get, but we will have audio issues. That we guarantee.
Fucking Mike, I swear to God.